Okay, so this is the example of the output from your literature review if you use a literature review metric. So if let's say you are looking for the definition of the variable, so then you can come up with the analysis of your the analysis of the definition. Sebab in literature even you are looking for the definition okay, every scholar, depending on the scholar, they will provide the definition of the variables according to their perspective. So sometimes as a researcher, we need to look at from the different perspectives, so then you can come up with your own your own proposition on what will be the definition of the variable under your study. So ini contoh. Okay, this is another example. Ni dia besar lagi lah. Okay. Another example of summary of research results. Okay, so sebenarnya, okay, if we are doing the empirical study, so this should be part of our literature review techniques. But for qualitative study, there is one qualitative study. The name is systematic literature review. The name of the design is systematic literature review, in which you can come up with a research article or a study by itself by reviewing your literature. Kita come up dengan literature review kita macam ni pun kita dah boleh come up dengan satu study kalau dalam kualitatif. Tapi untuk you all ni kita tak cadangkanlah untuk buat this type of study as as your master dissertation study kita tak cadangkan. Tapi dalam kajian, kalau you all go through the literature, memang ada kajian yang dia buat hanya literature review sahaja. Apa yang dia buat literature review je. Ujung tu dia dapat, dia publish, inilah dia punya finding dia. Okay. Okay, the next step is synthesize the literature. So in this, the synthesize involve you compare, contrast, and merge, okay, disparate pieces of information into one coherent whole that provides a new perspective. So all the information that, all the related information are already there in one place. So you make comparison. Okay, you make the academic comparison, you contrast what are the differences between the two, okay, which one is better, which one that you need to merge, which one that you need to integrate, which one that you need to delete, okay, based on the information that is already there for you. Okay, and then a high quality literature review reflects careful analysis of all sources and a critical synthesis in which you show how previous studies and information are related to each other and to your study. Sebab tu kita tak nak literature review ni dalam bentuk plain. Dia ada dalam bentuk debates. Okay, dia macam monolog dalaman kita. Okay, dia sama macam bila kita buat literature review, sama macam kita bermonolog dengan diri sendiri. Okay, dia ada argument, dia ada disagreement. This first researcher said like this, however this one said like this. So what is your conclusion? So kita akan nampak kecantikan dalam penulisan you all tu, so that penulisan you all tu kita tak rasa boring. Okay, so in literature review you are creating a unique new forest which you will build by using the trees you found in the literature you read. So our literature review ni, penceritaan dalam literature review kita ni adalah based on our own story. But we refer to the literature but to support some arguments. But in terms of arranging it, okay, discussing it, okay, it is depending on our idea. Okay. And then in order to build this new whole, you should consider how these pieces, how the pieces relate to one and another. Okay, make sure kita boleh nampak the connection of each piece or of each references that you use. So you synthesize the literature when you identify relationship among studies. Okay, compare or to show commonalities and contrast, show differences, the works, ideas, theories, or concept from various authors. You comment on the major themes and patterns you discovered. Okay, show evidence of common results using data from multiple sources. Okay, so probably related to the third point, some of the students say that, Doctor, we are still novice researcher. How do we are able to give our own opinion? Yes, you can. If you have ample reading, you can give or insert your own idea into the discussion. Kita tak adalah terima sebulat-bulatnya daripada literature. Okay, and then show evidence of common results using data from multiple sources. Discuss the pros and cons of the issues. Okay, explain a conflict or contradiction among different sources. Point out gaps in the literature, reflecting on why this exists based on the understanding you gain in reading in your study area. Note inconsistencies across studies over time. Inconsistency, perhaps from 2000 until 2010, so the findings are like this. So from the 2011 2020, the findings are a little bit different due to probably there is a significant phenomenon during that time. So we can see the changes during that 10-year periods, for example. Okay, and then make generalization across studies if possible. If let's say from 2000 until 2020, the findings are consistent. Okay, from even though has been conducted by different scholars, for example, studies related to job satisfaction, for example, in which I mentioned earlier, it is already saturated. So we can make our own conclusion based on reading ni memang sama je finding dia. Okay, and then discuss how and why ideas about your topic have changed over time. Ada tak faktor-faktor tertentu? Kenapa isu ni berubah-ubah? And then make connection between the sources cited. Jangan cite sources tu, kita letakkan sumber tu. We locate our references, but the references are not connected from one and another. Dia adalah dua dot yang tak berkait. Kalau kita baca balik, apa kaitan reference kedua dengan reference pertama? Okay, so make sure the references that you cited has connection. Okay, and then discuss literature that has a direct bearing on your area of study. Okay, and then the seventh step, organize the literature. You select an organizational framework. Okay, and then you can arrange your literature either according to chronological, okay, by useful for historical research or other studies where time is an important element. Thematic, okay, you integrate the literature and depends on your ability to synthesize information effectively, or general to specific, the V-shape or the funnel approach, up to you. Then you can create a topic outline. So in your topic or outline, okay, by the technical, and for the technical part, the subtopic ni shouldn't only consist of one subtopic. They at least more than two or more subtopic. Bila kita nak ada subtopic for one topic tu, okay, so make sure you have at least two. Dia tak boleh satu topik besar dan ada satu je subtopik dia. Okay. Okay, and then step 8, okay, you write the literature review. Pretend your literature review is a discussion with a friend regarding what authors have written about your problem area. Okay, your review is an informative story of what is known about your topic. You try to write your literature review as an informative story. Okay, a summary of the state of the art. Then you should write for an audience who is intelligent but not knowledgeable about your study. Kita tahu knowledge kita punya audience ni seseorang yang faham, tapi kita kena explain as clear as possible, as detailed as possible. Okay, this means you limit as much as possible jargon and specialized nomenclature. Okay, kita kurangkan penggunaan jargon dalam kajian kita. Okay, so these are the products of the literature review. Products, output from your literature review. It can be the critical review. If you come out with the critical discussion, your literature review itself, the mapping review or systematic map, meta-analysis, okay, mixed studies review or mixed methods review, overview, okay, regarding the interest topic, qualitative systematic review or qualitative evidence synthesis, state of the art review, systematic review dah ada tadi kat atas ada. Okay, and then systematic search and review, systematized review and umbrella review. So these are the example of the outputs from the literature review. Okay. Okay, any questions so far regarding the literature review? Okay. Next one, research design. Okay, kita masuk dah. Okay, first this week, I'm going to focus first on the quantitative research design. Next week, kalau sempat habis minggu ni, insyaAllah next week on qualitative research design. Okay, so in general, we have three major research approaches or paradigm. So saya lebih suka guna perkataan paradigm or approach. Because when you use the term research design to differentiate these three big umbrella ni, dia kadang-kadang confusing. Okay, so either we have three types of research approaches or paradigm in general. Okay, tapi kalau contemporary issue, then kita akan ada banyak lagi. For example, action research, sequential qualitative, sequential quantitative, ada banyak lagi. Okay, so the first one we have the quantitative research, which is the research that relies primarily on the collection of quantitative data. Okay, itu dia punya general definition. Then the second one we have qualitative research. Okay, quali. Okay, in which the qualitative research relies primarily on the collection of qualitative data. Qualitative, data in wording form. Quanti, data in numerical form. Okay, and then the next one we have mixed method, mixed research. Okay, mixed method. Mixed method ni dia ada a few design lah Dia ada few lagi. Okay, so mixed method, mixed research referring to research that involve the mixing of quantitative and qualitative methods or other paradigm characteristics. We combine two design in one study. We do not combine, we just not combining the data collection method. We combining the design. Design dengan method tak sama. Okay. So in mixed method research, mixed research ni we combine or integrate two design. Either you start with quali first, then follow with quanti, or you start with quanti followed by quali. Okay, itu maksud mix. Okay, so the basic differences. So yang untuk mix ni saya tak sentuh banyak sebab this one is the basic research method. Sebenarnya untuk mix ni kita ada, insyaAllah akan diperkenalkan nanti course baru untuk mix. Okay, but ni saya sentuh untuk quanti and quali. Okay, so the basic differences between quantitative and qualitative ni. So qualitative is more on exploratory study in which we make observation to develop theory. The purpose is to develop a new understanding on the area, because there are limited understanding on that particular group in literature. Okay, so these are the philosophical assumption, which is the subjectivity. Okay, subjective. The finding can be subjective. And then the finding can depend on the context, contextualization. And then we use the inductive reasoning approach. Okay, and in-depth. Okay, in-depth. Okay, and then the data are in wording form. Okay, and then there are, kalau you all go through the literature, there are other there are more specific design, research design related to qualitative, but we follow the suggestion by Creswell, which he proposed there are 5 main design under qualitative, which is narrative, phenomenology, grounded theory, ethnography, and case study. Okay, dia ada 5 ni, narrative, phenomenology, grounded theory, ethnography, case study. There are 5 design. Okay, and then for quantitative, which is the direction is to confirming the theory. It's a type of confirmatory study, which is with the purpose is we want to confirm the theory. Okay, by testing the hypothesis. Okay, in which we make observation to test theory. So in terms of the philosophical assumption, it is based on objective. Okay, objectivity. The purpose is to make generalization, which is generalizability. We use the deductive reasoning. Okay, breadth, dia luas. Okay, tapi lack of depthness. Ini kita dah belajar di awal semester hari tu. And then the data ni mostly in the form of numbers, numerical form. Okay, so example of quantitative approaches, we have descriptive study. Okay, this one descriptive study ni does not similar with descriptive analysis. But in descriptive study, we use the highest level of statistical analysis used in descriptive study is descriptive analysis, descriptive statistics. Okay, next one we have correlational study, we have quasi-experimental study, and we have experimental study. Kita ada 4 design utama ni, tapi under the experimental study tu dia akan ada lagi, okay, anak-anak dia. Okay. Okay, so this is our LO. At the end of the session, students are able to determine the quantitative research assumptions and characteristics, differentiate between different types of quantitative research designs, okay, identify instrumentation process in quantitative research, determine data collection procedure in quantitative research, and identify data analysis and interpretation procedures in quantitative research. Okay. Okay, so what are the assumptions of quantitative research? Okay, first, again, the reality is objective. It is out there, okay, and independent of the researcher. Objectively, independent meaning that the researcher cannot insert their own objective into, cannot insert their own perspective on the finding. Okay, the researcher are responsible to choose the variable, but when looking when they are looking for the answer for the question that he or she developed, she or he cannot insert his or her own opinion. Sebab tu kalau dalam quantitative ni, when you are collecting your data, the questionnaire already completed, you just distribute the questionnaire to be completed by your respondent. Dia objektif, itu sahaja yang kita ukur. Okay, and then reality is something that can be studied objectively. Okay, we does not give any meaning to the subject that we study. Okay, it is what as it is. Okay, so researchers should remain distant and independent of what is being researched. Okay, researcher is value free. Okay, the values of the researcher do not interfere with or become part of the research. And that's why kalau dalam quantitative study ni, you cannot use biasanya kita tak guna use I conducted, I distributed the questionnaire among, kita tak guna. Kita tak tunjukkan bias. We cannot show the bias. Okay, and then research is based primarily on deductive forms of logic and theories. Then hypotheses are tested in a cause-effect manner. Goals is to develop generalization that contribute to theory. Okay, and then it's enable the researcher to predict, explain, and understand some phenomena. Okay, we predict based on the finding, we predict, we explain, and understand some phenomena. Okay, the purpose of quantitative study, the main purpose is we want to make generalization. Okay, from the sample to the population, and then we want to make prediction. Based on the current sample, based on the current situation, we want to predict the future occurrence. Okay, by establishing the prediction equation as in regression. Contoh. And then causal explanation. We want to explain the cause and effect relationship between variables. Okay. The approach, so the approach for quantitative, so we start with developing the hypothesis, okay, supported by theories. Okay, we develop the hypothesis supported by theories and the literature as well. And then it can involve the manipulation and control of variable. If you choose your study design is experimental, then for sure you are going to have some variables that you are going to manipulate, okay, or control. Okay, and then use formal or structured instrument. This one reflecting the survey lah, the questionnaire. Okay, and then experimentation and intervention. Okay, deductive, component analysis, 6 for consensus, in which the general standard of the population. We are not looking for the uniqueness. We are looking for the generalization. We are looking for the standard or the norm that has been accepted by the population. Kita tak berminat nak cari, nak study about the minority ni. Kita nak study apa yang difahami secara keseluruhan. Okay, it reduce data to numerical index and then abstract language in write up. Okay. Okay, so these are the researchers' role in quantitative study: detachment and impartiality. And then objective portrayal, ethic, which is outsider's point of view. Okay, ini dia punya role. Okay, so what are the specific types of quantitative research design again? So in general, ni kita buat spesifik sikit. Okay, if we divide, okay, if we divide, okay, the quantitative research according to the time frame. Okay, the time frame. So we are going to have two design: cross-sectional and longitudinal time frame. First, cross-sectional. Kalau kita divide kajian kita tu mengikut time frame, ada dua jenis. Okay, cross-sectional and longitudinal. Okay, cross-sectional is a design that, okay, is a research design in which, okay, the data collection happen only once. Okay, cross-sectional study is a type of quantitative study that happen, in which the data collection happen only once. Okay, pilot study is a part of data collection or not? Pilot study.
I think yes.
No, pilot study is part of instrument testing, not data collection. Okay, sebab in quantitative study, the actual only we consider the actual data collection as the main data collection. Dia tak ada. Pilot study tu hanyalah untuk testing the instrument. Okay, we want to look for the consistency and validity of the instrument. Okay, we are not yet testing on the finding. Okay, sebab tu the sample size for the pilot study is small. Okay, so ingat cross-sectional study is a design in which the data collection only happen once. But longitudinal study, okay, is a type of quantitative research design in which data collection happen more than once. Banyak kali. Okay, so we have three. We have trend study, cohort study, and panel study. So at the department, one of the expert for the longitudinal study is Dr. Nur Fazrin. Dr. Fazrin dia pernah buat kajian longitudinal ni. Longitudinal ni it takes time. Okay, your actual data collection ni happen, for example, 3 kali. Okay, 3 kali. Okay. So you then after you completed the third time data collection, you make comparison, you compare the findings. Okay, so then the 3 data collection ni probably happen within a year, within certain time frame gap, or within 3 years, one data collection for each year ataupun 2 years. So it takes time, longitudinal. That's why nama dia longitudinal. Okay, and then under cross-sectional study ni, okay, if we divide according to the variable that the variable that we manipulate, either there is a variable that we manipulate or not. Okay, we have two. Okay, we have experimental and non-experimental research design. Okay, so experimental, okay, example, we have pre-experimental, we have true experimental, and then we have quasi-experimental research. 3. And then non-experimental ni we have descriptive survey research. Descriptive survey ni sometimes similar to descriptive. The researcher they use just the term survey research. Okay, and then we have meta-analysis, we have ex post facto or causal comparative research, and last one we have correlational research. Okay. Then untuk yang eksperimental ni pula dia akan ada lagi according to design, different design according to the number of variable. Okay, single variable design, factorial design. Okay, kompleks sikit lah untuk experimental ni. Okay, and then some say the experimental studies ni is a type of causal relationship study. If you conduct the experimental study ni, automatically you can come up with causal explanation regarding the phenomena, the cause and effect. Okay. Okay, first experimental research.
Doktor,
Any question? Yeah.
Doktor, yang longitudinal tadi tu selalunya berapa lama?
It depending on the literature. Okay, for example, if you conduct studies related to training, okay, in which you for 1 year ni you have 3 different cohort. Okay, 3 different cohort, then you want to conduct 3 different data collection for one for each group, for example. Okay, in terms of the training content similar, in terms of the instructor similar, but you want to see the effectiveness of the training. Okay, so then you make 3 data collection, then you locate the gap between first and second, probably 3 months. So it can be in 9 months you already completed your study. But some studies, probably if you use the similar sample, so then you give them some some time. For example, 6 months to make sure that there is no halo effect or the effect of the they remember the questionnaire. So 6 months. So probably it can take 2 years, around 2 years. Okay. Another study, it can take 60 years. Boleh jadi longitudinal. Dia boleh jadi panjang. Depending on the interest. Kadang-kadang ada, okay, kalau you go through literature and there is one study on there is one researcher or teams of researcher that study on human happiness. They study on human happiness. So they are looking for the factors influencing human happiness. So it takes him around 60 years, if I'm not mistaken, 60 or 30 years to complete that study until he come up with the conclusion what are the factors influencing human happiness. Okay, itu dia
so kita dah jalankan study tu 30 tahun contohlah. Does it still genuine the awalan research kita tu kita ada
literature review,
doktor? Literature
problem
review
statement.
apa semua tu, problem statement apa semua tu kita dah guna yang 30 tahun ke belakang.
Okay,
so is it still genuine or not?
Okay, in terms of in terms of the objective still similar, but the literature review tu we need to update lah. The literature we need to keep update. But the finding in 30 years, then you can come up with one solid findings. A very convincing finding related to that phenomenon. So you come across any situation, any significant situation that probably happen within certain time frame. Ada mungkin dalam 10 tahun pertama ada satu fenomena dan mungkin ada nampak perubahan. So then you can highlight that. Mungkin finding tu berbeza sikit. So you can highlight that in your finding. So itu interestingnya longitudinal. You can see the trend. Trend dia macam mana. Okay, tapi panjang lah. Okay, so the manipulated variable is called the experimental treatment. And then or the independent variable. So di dalam experimental research, the observe and measured variable is called the dependent variable. So experimental study ni is just what we did during our secondary school in lab. Macam itulah biasanya. So the final component of an experimental study is to control extraneous variable. So because our focus is on our IV and DV, our the treatment, and then the output, the dependent variable. So we want to control, we want to identify the factors, the third factors, okay, that probably has influence on the dependent variable. So then we need to control. Kita buang pengaruh tu. Okay, kalau you all ingat masa kita buat Tahun ke-27 maka COVID-19 LH1 lucu. Okay. Okay, so the final component of an experimental study is to control extraneous variable. Okay, so in which an extraneous variable is any variable other than the independent and dependent variable that might influence the dependent variable. And then the third variable, kita tak nak, okay, but because we want to truly look for the connection or the cause and effect of IVs toward the DV. Okay, so we control the third variable, the third phenomena or the third situation. Okay. Okay, so we make classification according to the number of independent variable. So if you have only single variable design, okay, single variable design, you have one manipulated independent variable. So for example, you want to test on the trainer effectiveness. So then you change the trainer. Single saja, satu benda je. Dalam kajian you ada satu IV, dan you change the setting. Dia punya apa tu, your instructor for example. Then factorial design have two or more independent variables, or at least one of which is manipulated. Salah satu, mungkin satu tapi satunya mungkin ada dua tapi satu, sekurang satu yang you all manipulate. Okay, and then classification according to control over threats to internal validity. Okay, we have pre-experimental, we have true experimental, and then where we have quasi-experimental. Okay, ni first one, pre-experimental design. Okay, in pre-experimental design, we do not have random assignment of subjects to group or other strategies to control extraneous variables. Ini pre-experimental ni adalah jenis experimental design yang paling lemah. Okay, sebab we do not have random assignment when we assigning respondent to the group. Okay, we want to make comparison between two groups, for example. So when assigning the group ni, kita tak apply random assignment. Kita conveniently choose the respondent and locate them within the group. So kita tak ada strategi untuk control the extraneous variables ni. Okay. So example dia, one group pre-test post-test design and static group comparison. Ini contoh untuk pre-experimental design. Okay, the basic concept dia tak ada random assignment. Okay. Next one, true experimental design. So ini adalah design experimental yang betul-betul. Betul-betul experimental. So it is also called randomized design. Okay, in which it use the randomization and provide maximum control of extraneous variables. So when we assigning the group, for example, if we want to compare the the effectiveness of the ERS5900. So I randomly assign two groups. Saya random, saya buat randomization. Each group has 20 respondent, for example. I have two groups, so each group need to have 20 respondent. So I list the name, I pick randomly for each group. Then so that's I want to minimize the group of for example, I want to minimize the effect of gifted student. Contohnya, saya control, saya pastikan dia tak, maksudnya tak adalah sudut pandang ni berada dalam satu kumpulan sahaja. So saya buat dia secara random. Okay. So example of true experimental design, randomized subject post-test only control group design, randomized match subject post-test only control group design, randomized subject pre-test post-test control group design, Solomon 3 group design, and Solomon 4 group design. Design 3, the numbering of design is sebenarnya, if you refer to the book of Donald Airy, sebenarnya banyak when I prepare the lecture note ni, I refer to Donald Airy books. So design ni you can refer to the book. Sebab saya tak sentuh detail lah pasal experimental design ni. Saya just introduce sahaja. Okay, next one, factorial design. Okay, in which the layout for an experiment, investing investigating the combined effects of two or more independent variables. Okay, meaning that you are looking for the interaction between the IVs, okay, either two IVs or more, okay, and then you see the effect of this interaction towards the DV. It's quite similar with mediation study, moderation study, lebih kurang sama. Okay, that's why kita ada factorial analysis, two-way ANOVA contoh. The results are analyzed by means of a multi-factor analysis of variance. Okay, for example, we have simple factorial design. Okay, and then factorial design enable researchers to assess the effectiveness of the treatment at different level of other variables such as race and gender. Kita ada the first grouping. Okay, then we make the interaction between race and gender. Adakah bangsa dengan jantina ni mempengaruhi pencapaian pelajar? Kita tengok interaksi kedua-dua ni, then we see the effect of this of the interaction ni towards the DV. Okay. Okay, next one, quasi-experimental design. Okay, it is a type of research in which the investigator can control the treatment and then the measurement of the dependent variable but cannot control assignment of the subject to treatment. Ada soalan ke? Okay. Okay, so this one quite similar with pre-experimental. So in which the investigator ni cuma beza dia control the treatment but dia tak boleh nak control the assignment, sama. Okay, example dia non-randomized control group, pre-test post-test design and then counterbalance design. Okay, ni time series saya tak sentuh lah tak ni jarang ni. Okay, so ini comparison dia. Okay, so next one, non-experimental research. This type of research mostly been applied in HRD area lah. Kalau training, biasanya you all can apply the experimental, but the rest rarely found. Study in HRD, apply the non-experimental. It is possible and then it is strongly recommended, but it takes time. Okay, so in non-experimental research, researcher identify variables and may look for the relationships among them but does not manipulate the variable. Kita tak ada anything that we manipulate. Okay, kita tak ada manipulate the classroom setting, in term the instructional methods, tak ada. Okay, first one, survey research design. Okay, survey research or also called as descriptive research. Okay, descriptive research, make sure you are able to differentiate between descriptive research and descriptive analysis. Dua benda yang berbeza. Okay, descriptive analysis ni biasanya digunakan sebagai the highest analysis in descriptive research. Okay, so in which we use instruments such as questionnaire and interviews to gather information from groups of individuals. Okay, so the survey permit the researcher to summarize the characteristics of different groups or to measure their attitudes and opinions towards some issues. Okay, a survey that covers the entire population of interest is referred to as census. Census ni is a type of study, is a type of survey study, descriptive study that covers the whole population. Okay, if let's say in your organization you have 100 respondents, so then in your study you include all these 100 respondents. So the name of your study should be census, bukan benda lain dah, memang nama dia census. Okay, survey design ni, survey study ni, only a portion of the population is known as a sample. Okay, sorry, a study that studies only a portion of the population is known as a sample study, sample survey. Sebab tu lah nama dia statistik. Okay, for the study that use sample. Okay. Okay, so survey research design ni basically we are looking for the opinion. Okay, opinion or you are looking for something that is descriptive in nature. Okay, itu sahaja. You are not interested in any correlation between variables. Sometimes you are just collecting the information ni related to only one variable. Satu je. Okay. Okay, longitudinal study. Okay, it gathers information at different points in time in order to study the changes over extended period of time. Okay, so there are 3 different designs that are used under longitudinal study research. We have panel studies, trend studies, and cohort research. 3 jenis. Panel study ni the same subject are surveyed several times over an extended period of time. For example, a researcher studying the development of quantitative reasoning in elementary school children would select a sample of first graders and administer a measure of quantitative reasoning. So this same group would be followed through successive grade levels and tested each year to assess how quantitative reasoning skills develop over time. Ini contoh. Di grup yang sama dia akan tengok. Contohnya 3 tahun pengajian, so dia akan tengok pembangunan this quantitative reasoning ni during that 3 years. Okay, because the same subject are studied over time, so the researcher can see the changes in the individual's behavior and investigate the reasons for the changes. Okay, kita akan nampak 3 tahun tu. Okay, next one, trend study. So trend study ni dia different from panel study in that different individuals randomly drawn from the same general population are surveyed at interval over a period of time. Okay, so this one dia guna different individual. Kalau tadi sama, yang ni berbeza. Okay, for example, researcher who have studied national trends in maths achievement sample middle school students at various intervals and measure their math performance. So even though the individuals are not same individual are tested each time, but the sample from the population of middle school students are selected randomly. So the result is each time can be considered representative of the middle school population from which the student samples were drawn. The test score from each year to year are compared to determine if any trends are evident. So kalau trend ni dia tak sama, bukan individu yang sama. We pick randomly, but they still share similar characteristic. Middle school student, okay? And then, ni contoh lain lah so ni saya tak baca lah this one. Okay, last one, cohort study. Okay, cohort study, a specific population is followed over a length of time with different random samples studied at various points. Population ni sama, cuma sampel tu dia berubah-ubah. Okay, so if let's say in trend study, sample a general population that changes in membership over time. A cohort study samples a specific population whose members do not change over the duration of the survey. Okay, so for example, typically cohort group ni has age in common. Umur yang sama. For example, a school system might follow the high school graduating classes of 2004 over time and ask them questions about higher education, work experiences, attitudes, and so on. And then from the list, okay, a random sample is drawn at different point in time and data are collected from that sample. So the population remains the same during the study, but the individual surveyed are different each time. Dia lebih kurang sama dengan trend study. Ada sikit sahaja perbezaan. Okay, any questions so far? Belum Mana pula? Okay. So next one, cross-sectional study. Okay, so ingat tadi kalau untuk longitudinal, in general the data collection happen more than one. Okay, more than one. Okay, next one, cross-sectional study. So cross-section ni is a cross-section sample of a population at a single point in time. Sekali je, kita cross sekali je. Tak kira group mana, population mana, sample mana, sekali saja. So if let's say in a longitudinal study of vocabulary development, for example, a researcher would compare a measure of first grade students' vocab skill in 2000 with one when they were fourth grade students in 2003 and seventh grade students in 2006. But in cross-sectional study, it would compare the vocabulary skill of a sample of children from grades 1, 4, and 7. Different sample, but at the same time. Sample sama, tapi masanya sama. Dia tak follow orang yang sama. Okay, in 2006. Faham Okay, the cross-sectional survey is the method of choice if you want to gather the data at one point in time. Itu sahaja. Collect data sekali. Senang je. Okay, so the differences between longitudinal versus cross-sectional. So longitudinal survey are more time consuming because it takes time lah for you to collect the data or to follow your respondent, and it also can cause to drop out in your study respondent. So sometimes the respondent that involved in the first data collection probably refuse to participate in the second and third stage, for example. And then it is expensive to conduct because the researcher must keep up with the subjects and maintain their cooperation over a long period of time. Memang susah. Nak dapatkan first data collection pun susah. Ini kan lagi 2-3. Okay, tapi possible. Okay, cross-sectional survey, okay, it does not require years to complete. Therefore, it is less expensive. But in terms of power, so it is less powerful compared to longitudinal survey, longitudinal study, less powerful. Okay, so the major disadvantage of the cross-sectional method is that the chance differences between samples may seriously bias the result. Sometimes the individual that should be included in our study is absent on that day, for example. So we are unable to distribute or collect the data from him or her. Itu dia punya. So then maybe our finding boleh jadi bias. Okay, then you may by chance draw a sample of first graders who are more mature than average and a sample of fourth graders who are less mature than average, with the result that the difference between the groups appears much smaller than it really is. Inilah dia punya possibility. Okay. Then, however, researcher can usually obtain larger sample for cross-sectional studies than for longitudinal studies, and the larger samples mitigate the problem of chance differences. So this is how we can cover the weaknesses of cross-sectional study, in which we try to increase the number of sample in our study. Okay. Okay, next one, ex post facto. Okay, ex post facto or causal comparative study. So it is quite similar to experimental design, except the researcher does not manipulate the independent variable, which has already occurred in the natural course of event. Dia ada benda yang still we can conduct the causal comparative, but it does not involve the any manipulation. Okay, so this method is called causal comparative because its purpose is to investigate the cause and effect relationship between in IV and DV. But in terms of the power, it is less powerful compared to the the real experimental study, the true experimental study. Okay. So researchers use it in situations that do not permit the randomization and manipulation of variable characteristic of experimental research. Therefore, the basic rationale for experimental and ex post facto is the same. Okay, they both investigate relationship among variables and test hypotheses. They investigate the relationship, and then in advanced term, they test for the cause and effect. Cause and effect. Okay, and then ex post facto research is also appropriate when the variable actually could be manipulated, but it's not because it would be unethical or irresponsible to do so. That's why most of social science researchers, we prefer to use ex post facto, because it is very difficult to manipulate our human subject. It is unethical. Okay, for example, it would be not be ethical to manipulate illegal drug use or use of alcohol or cigarettes to study their effects on human subject. But you can study the effect of drug to human subject, but you cannot manipulate the amount. You can look for the group of drug addicted group people ni, boleh cari, investigate, but you cannot control the amount of drug they take every day. Kita tak boleh that's why kita tak boleh buat experimental untuk yang study yang macam ni. Okay, cigarette pun sama, kod pun sama Okay, ini yang the most popular research design in among the HRD student. Okay, correlational research. Okay, so it is the most useful application of correlation, which is we want to assess the relationship, assess the consistency, and make prediction. Okay, the correlational research ni it's also depend on the type of statistical analysis that we use in our study. Okay, so the correlational research ni gathers data from individuals on 2 or more variables, okay, and then seeks to determine if the variables are connected, are correlated. Okay, and then correlation means the extent to which the 2 variables vary differently, either positive or negative correlation, and then the degree of relationship is expressed as a numeric index called the coefficient of correlation. You all dah attend kelas statistik kan? Dah? Belum lagi?
Belum.
Okay, ni kena detail.
Belum.
Belum apa. Ada gambaran sikit lah So correlational study ni basically it will be connected, sama sebenarnya. The design, each design in quantitative study ni it will be connected to it will be connected to statistical analysis. Kalau if you use experimental, then it will be connected to type of statistical analysis that involve comparison, t-test, one-way ANOVA, two-way ANOVA. Okay, then if you are interested to see for the correlation, for example, so probably the analysis that you are going to use are the analysis related to correlation. For example, we have Pearson product moment correlation, and then we have Spearman rank order correlation, or we can use the simple linear regression or multiple linear regression. By the way, you are in your second semester, right? Betul? Tak ambil lagi statistik? Sepatutnya dah ambil. Apa lambat sangat?
Belum ambil, Doktor.
Ambil
Sem 3 baru nak ambil, Doktor.
3 lambat lah tu. Buat lama sangat. Okey, tak apalah.
Tak ada jawapan, Doktor.
Okey, baik. Nanti jawapan dia Doktor senior cakap. Okey. Okey, next one. So, ini dia punya. So, any questions so far? Okay, so when you write your chapter 3, okay, in your chapter 3, you need to clarify. If you use the quantitative design, you need to specify. Itu ayat dia saya cari. Okay, you need to specify the research design. First, the research paradigm that you use, and then specify which research design that you will use in your proposal. So in your proposal, you should specify first the paradigm that you want to use, either the qualitative or the quantitative. Then provide your justification. If you want to use quantitative, then provide justification why your study why your study is suitable through qualitative. If you want to use quantitative, why your study suitable by using quantitative paradigm. Make sure you provide justification clearly. Next one, specify the design. Okay, specify the design that you use. Either you use pre-experimental, ex-post facto, okay, trend study, or correlational research, or even the descriptive research. Provide justification. Okay, how to provide justification? Refer to your research objective. Okay, your highest objective related to which analysis? You all tengok balik. Is there any manipulation of variables? If there are any manipulation of variable, then you may consider the design under experimental. If no manipulation of variable, then and then you're just interested to see the connection or the correlation between variable, then probably the design is correlational research design. Then provide your justification why it is correlational research design. Faham Itu yang saya expect dalam you all punya proposal writing. You specify the design. Kena ada, wajib. Okay. Okay. So this one, okay, so when we conduct the quantitative study, so we collect the data from the questionnaire. We collect the data from the instrument. The questionnaire biasanya in quantitative study, the name we use, or we call it as instrument. Instrument, Okay, so instrument is referring to the tools or means by which investigators attempt to measure variables or items of interest in the data collection process. Okay, so it comprises scientific activities and technologies are related to measurement. Okay, it is related to the design, how we design the instrument, how we select, how we construct, how we assess the condition under which the designated instruments are administered. Okay, after we completed the designs at the design stage, then we distribute the questionnaire. How do we administer the questionnaire? Okay, the instrument is the device used by investigators for collecting data. Okay, and then investigators need to describe thoroughly the instrument used to measure the dependent variables, outcomes, or the DV, or the effects of intervention or treatment. Kita kena cerita dengan detail. Where is the origin of the instrument? Okay, and then the instrumentation involve the procedure of establishing instrument validity and reliability, as well as minimizing measurement errors. So when we develop the questionnaire, the instrument in quantitative study, we need to take care of two important elements of validity and reliability. What is validity? What is validity? Ada siapa-siapa ingat? Oh, tak attend lagi kelas quantitative kan? Kelas statistik. Validity referring to the okay, referring to the accuracy, ketepatan, accuracy of the instrument used to measure the specific variable. You measure what it is supposed to measure. The instrument measured what it is supposed to measure. Accuracy. Validity ni referring to the accuracy. Kalau kita nak ukur, for example, if we want to measure attitude, then the instrument truly measure the attitude, not something else. Okay, if I want to know L-halwa, so I make sure that the information included or the instrument, the element included under the under my instrument ni truly measure L-halwa, bukan orang lain. Okay, meanwhile reliability ni related to consistency. Consistency. The instrument tu gives consistent result over the years. Every time I use the similar instrument, it provides consistent finding. If I use it in 2003, it gives me the similar finding in 2010, and then it gives me similar finding in 2020. Consistent. Okay, the instrument that is consistent, not necessarily valid. Okay, the instrument that is consistent, not necessarily valid. Satu instrumen yang memberikan keputusan yang konsisten, tak semestinya instrumen tersebut mengukur benda yang sepatutnya. Contohnya pemberat. Kan, mesin pemberat tu. Dia ada ralat 5 contohnya. So setiap kali kita timbang, berat kita 65, 65, 65. Konsisten. But is it accurate? Not accurate. Faham
Oh. Mana dia ada penipuan.
So dia tak mengukur dengan betul. Okay, sama macam in social science instrument. Sometimes we think that the instrument ni measured that particular variable, but it is actually not. Okay?
Kalau macam kita ukur cuaca tu Dr. Nur, sama juga.
Possible. So that's why kena ada orang betul-betul pakar. So macam falak hari tu pun sama lah tiba-tiba raya tu sama. So sama ada betul ke tak, ada accuracy tu. Dalam setiap area dia akan ada the element of validity and reliability. Akan ada. Okay? Okay, and then instrumentation, for example, questionnaire. Okay, so instrumentation ni can consist of questionnaire, interviews, observations, okay, test, field notes, accounts, document, personal construct, and role play. Instrumen ni boleh jadi banyak, but mostly in quantitative study, we use questionnaires. Questionnaire. Ini biasanya. Dia boleh jadi yang lain-lain, dia boleh jadi yang lain-lain. But mostly questionnaires. Okay, in quantitative. Faham Okay, and, any questions so far related to instrument ni? Sebenarnya sempat ke tak? Tak apalah. Okay, so for instrumentation, when you want to develop the instrumentation and then if you want to secure the validity, okay, you want to secure the validity of the instrument, okay, how you can secure is, okay, you make sure the operational definition that you provide, okay, this one linked to the chapter 1 that I've shared earlier in earlier week. Okay, to develop the instrument, this section is closely connected to your literature review as well as to your chapter 1 when you develop your conceptual and operational definition for each variable. Faham For instrumentation ni, okay, if you have, for example, 3 variables, 3 independent variables and 1 dependent variable in your study. So make sure for each variable, you have 1 instrument. For each variable, you should have 1 standalone instrument. Faham Setiap kalau ada 3 IV, 1 DV, maksudnya you should have 4 instrument. 4 different instrument. Faham? Saya tak ada slide yang detail lah untuk this one. Ada tapi dalam lecture lain. Okay, cuma ni saya tambah extra notes lah So, then after you come up with the operational definition for each variable, then you propose the instrument that you think can measure that particular element included under your operational definition. Okay, kita tengok balik. Okay, itu to secure the validity of the study. The reliability ni, we cannot confirm until we do our pilot study. But one of the reason when we see one of the characteristic to choose the instrument is by looking at the instrument that has strong reliability result. Okay, the reliability result ni you can decide based on the Cronbach alpha value for the instrument. Nanti saya cuba cari lagi information on instrumentation InsyaAllah next week saya akan share balik on 2 element of validity and reliability. Sebab ni tak cukup ni. Okay, next one, data collection method. Okay, so we have interviews, okay, focus group discussions. Okay, you can also conduct the data collection through telephone interviews, okay, or questionnaire. Okay, then you can choose different type of questionnaire administering. Okay, we can mail the questionnaire, electronic mail survey, online survey, directly administered questionnaire. Okay, and for each selection of data collection method or procedure, you need to provide justification. You need to provide. If you use questionnaire, why questionnaire? If you use the online survey, why online survey? Kena provide justification. That's why when we conduct the empirical study ni, it is related to the conscious decision. Keputusan yang kita buat dalam keadaan sedar. Dia tak boleh kita buat keputusan tu dalam keadaan tak sedar. Tiba-tiba ada. Bukan tiba-tiba ahad. Tiba-tiba ada. Okay. So dia tak boleh macam tu. Dalam writing kita, make sure setiap benda yang kita buat tu kita ada justification dan kita tahu sebab dia kenapa. Daripada awal kenapa kita pilih quanti or quali, we know the justification. Dia tak boleh, saya rasa dia sesuatu. Tak boleh rasa-rasa dah. Okay? Ramzi nak tanya apa?
Doktor, untuk qualitative research, selalunya interview lah kan?
Biasanya interview
kan? Katalah kita buat. Berapa kita punya jumlah yang kita perlu interview tu, ada tak dia punya
guideline?
Orang kata apa? Guideline dia.
Okay, general rule ada, but specific rule tak ada. Okay, the general rule depending on the design. Okay, for example, if you use the biography study, so the N for sure equals to 1. Biography memang seorang je. Because you are interested to study this particular group because of his unique characteristic. For example, you want to study Tun Mahathir because of his unique characteristic as a leader. So N dia equals to 1. Responden ni memang satu. Either saturated or not, itu sahaja. But to confirm your finding, then you can do the triangulation. Maksudnya you use more than 3 methods of data collection over the similar individual ni, so similar person ni, to confirm the finding, to confirm the interview output, the interview result. You can see the document, you can ask to see his diary, for example, and then you can have your own field note ataupun any recorded document lah related to him, books and so on. So then you can check the consistency of the finding that you have in your transcript. Itu contoh. Okay. So in general, the number of sample for qualitative study can be equals to 1. The smallest N equals to 1. But mostly it do not exceed 15. More than 15, your finding will be too complex, terlalu besar. Itu general. Okay. But the number, the specific criteria to determine the number of sample in qualitative study is based on the saturation point. Ketepuan data. Saturated point. Okay, what is saturation? There is no more finding. Okay, there is no more new finding after you interview the respondent in which the finding given by the current respondent already repeat the answer given by the earlier respondent. Itu dia punya saturation. Kalau for example in your study, currently you are interviewing the 4th respondent. Okay, the finding from the 4th respondent already repeat the answer given by the 1st, 2nd or 3rd respondent. So you can directly stop your data collection at only 4 respondent. That's it.
Kita akan stop dekat yang keempat lah, bukan yang ketiga kan? Yang keempat.
Betul, yang keempat. Yang keempat. Okay, but yang ketiga kita tak tahu lagi data tepu ke tak. Okay, so that's why when you conduct the qualitative study, every time you conduct the interview, you need to do your transcription as soon as possible. Transcription ni meaning that you transfer the interview recording ni into the writing document, writing form, dalam bentuk bertulis. Okay, so then you get
maksudnya doktor, kalau kita nak interview tu kita kena ada set dah, buat katakan kita ada 6 orang. But in the end kita dah dapat jawapan yang sama dekat 4 orang. So we just stop at the 4th person lah.
Yes.
So tak payah pursue sampai 6 lah kan.
Betul. Dia senang sikit kat situ. Senang sikit in terms of getting the response quite easy in qualitative. But it's quite difficult in analyzing your data later on lah. Okay, dia punya complexity kat situ pula. Okay, kuanti ni susah nak dapat responden, tapi bila dah dapat tu petik jari je. Senang je. Masuk tekan keluar. Macam tu. Okay. Sebab for qualitative study ni there is no single software that can help you to come up with the thematic finding. Tak ada. Even though you use NVivo, Atlas TI, okay, you still have you still need to become the main tools to analyze your data. Sebab betul tu hanya membantu sahaja, facilitate the process. Okay, macam for example Prof Ismi last time when he did his PhD, he run his data analysis manually. Maksudnya from the paper, from the transcribed paper, he cut the finding and then dia tampal-tampal, letak dekat kertas majung, okay, according to thematic. Itu cara dia buat. Okay, depend on individual. Okay, but whatever it is, make sure you familiar with your qualitative finding first. Baca dulu, kadang-kadang 3 kali baca. 3 kali baca kita punya transkrip tu. 3 kali baca untuk faham apa jawapan dia, and then make note, letak note. Okay, to determine or to figure out your tema. Okay. Okay, comparison of data collection method. Okay, so we have personal interview. This one general can be applied either in qualitative or quantitative. Dua-dua boleh this one . Okay, personal interview, the advantage is researcher is present. Okay, can establish rapport, and then flexibility, high response rate. Okay, and then fewer incomplete answers because you can directly ask your informant or respondent. Good for surveys on complicated issues and time for thoughtful answers. The disadvantage is very time consuming. For one session, probably it can take more than 40 minutes, 30 to 40 minutes, or can be more than 1 hour. But try not to exceed 1 hour for each interview session. Cuba, kalau biasanya lebih daripada 1 jam tu mengarut. Biasanya. Okay, time yang cantik tu around 30 to 45 minutes. Betul-betul kita akan dapat content. More than 1 hour tu sebenarnya kita dah bincang pasal lain, politik and so on yang tak berkait pun. Okay, and then it is more expensive because you need to ask for the respondent, masa informant kita tu. Okay, and then interviewer bias, in which during the personal interview ni, so there might be the possibility of the researcher to include his or her own preference during the interview. Sebab dia ada direct interaction. Okay, and then social desirability bias, need to train interviewers. That's why kalau kita tak biasa, susah sikit. We are unable to develop rapport, then we are unable to kita tak boleh nak gali responden kita. Kita tak boleh nak dapatkan info tu. Okay, and then no anonymity because we exactly know our respondent. Less safe for researchers. Dia punya in terms of dia punya PNC, private and confidentiality of the information. Dia ada isu tu sikit lah. But unless if let's say you secure them by make sure they signing the consent agreement form, then should be okay. That's why for qualitative, you should prepare the consent agreement form to be signed by your respondent. Okay. Okay, next one, telephone interview. It is low cost, convenient, high response rate, very quick, greater safety for interviewers and respondents. Okay, but this one, the advantage is less rapport. Individuals may refuse to talk. Questions need to be short and simple, limited to those with telephones only. And then the other limitation for telephone interview is you can see their body language. Because in quantitative, kalau in qualitative study, other than we collect the verbal data, sometimes we want to see their non-verbal information as well. Betul tak apa yang dia cakap? Selari tak mata dia dengan apa yang dia cakap? Kalau dia kata dia happy, adakah the body language also indicated that he or she happy? We want to see that consistency. Sama macam if let's say you are following the case of Johnny Depp. So sama. So it's quite interesting pasal body language. Itu yang kita nak tengok during the interview, the consistency. Okay, so the qualitative interview ni not just the intention not just looking for the verbal information given by the informant, but the
Dr. Nomil,
yes,
dalam kualitatif tu, bila kita kata kita buat macam in-depth interview, face-to-face, one-to-one interview, dan juga kita tambah juga dengan observation, macam Dr. Nomil cakap, body language tu boleh jadi kita boleh letak dalam kita punya chapter 3 methodology tu kan?
Yes, can be. No, that one cannot be. Observation should be another session that you go there and just observe. If you still remember, kalau during your degree time, your lecturer touch on Hawthorne effect. Hawthorne effect. Ada tak ingat tak perkataan Hawthorne effect? In which the researcher go to one organization, they sit there and just observe silently. He bring his field note and just note everything on his note lah. Observation should be another session. You go there, do nothing, do not do the interview, but you just observe. Sit, duduk aja, 12 jam, duduk aja. You observe. That one is observation. During the interview, you interview, then you have your own field note. Okay, meaning that you together with interview the respondent, then you observe the punya facial expression and you make your own note, remarks. Itu lain itu interview. But observation you need to conduct another session. Okay?
Thank you.
Yes.
If I'm not mistaken, just now I heard that you said if we choose to do quantitative, kita boleh juga buat apa tu tadi, personal interview tu juga Doktor?
Yes, possible. But make
So,
sure.
not rely only on the questionnaires sample, but we can do it also in a personal interview or
Yes.
telephone interview. Is it?
Betul. Yes. But dia
But
ada
is it in-depth interviews juga ke kita namakan dia?
no,
Tak.
it is not in that. Okay, in terms of the structure of interview pun will be different. Okay, for quantitative study, mostly if you want to use interview, then we use close-ended. Close-ended. The answer is very short because if you apply the open-ended question during the interview, how you are going to code or how you are going to quantify the finding. Itu the difficulties that the quantitative researcher face lah. Because in quantitative,
Meaning not tak semua kita katakan okay mungkin respondent kita ada a few ministries and then we focus on macam 100 atau 200 questionnaires, but maybe ada yang kita rasa kita nak tanya lebih detail, so that's why we can use a personal interview untuk a certain respondent saja macam tu.
possible, but make
Okay.
sure the information to being quantified. Quantified. Or you
So
can
nama dia close-ended interview
biasanya close-ended ataupun paling tinggi pun semi-structured interview. That does not require a very long description by respondent. Okay?
Okay.
Okay, lagi ada soalan lagi? Ada tak? Okay, so next one, milk questionnaire. It is low cost, okay, allows anonymity, okay, and then no interviewer bias, convenient and non-threatening. Okay, so the disadvantage is very slow to post, okay, and get the questionnaire back. Okay, low response rate and non-response bias. Okay, cannot clarify question because you do not know who are your respondent, and then it can lead to missing data and literacy required. Literacy meaning that we need to make sure that our respondent are able to understand the questionnaire well. Okay. Electronic or internet questionnaire. So this is what currently been mostly used by the current researcher, because it is low cost, easy for researcher, convenient for respondent, allows anonymity, okay, and then potential of quick response, time for thoughtful answers, low social desirability bias, and greater safety for researcher and respondent. The disadvantage, okay, limited to computer savvy, okay, and then difficulty getting cooperation, potentially lower response rate, literacy requirement, may not be able to identify respondent. Ada lagi tak? Okay, last one, directly administered questionnaire, okay, in which you are present, the researcher are present, okay, so it's low cost, high response rate, and researcher present. Okay, the disadvantage, not as flexible with respect to time and place. Hold on, I'm going to show you the example of questionnaire. Contoh, cari dulu kat mana saya letak.
Doktor, saya nak tanya, tak tahulah saya sebut macam sebelum ni doktor pernah mention ke tak, sorry kalau saya terlepas pandang. Kalau macam kita nak tengok apa ni contoh-contoh questionnaire tu, bila kita buka, kita tengok literature review ke apa semua tu yang orang dulu pernah buat, kita kena minta kebenaran ke kalau kita apa ni daripada orang yang keluarkan questionnaire tu, kalau kita rasa dia soalan tu sesuai dengan tajuk kita.
Okay. Saya tak pernah sentuh lagi. Okay. Okay, so so ethically, to follow the ethical procedure, yes, we need to get the permission from the authors. We need to get their permission. But if you go through the article or the journal, okay, where the instruments originated, most of the scholars already mentioned somewhere on the articles that for educational purpose, so you can use the instrument directly without personally seek for their permission. Sebenarnya ada. Kalau you all tengok betul-betul, biasanya kat belakang tu ada. Tapi if nothing mentioned, then you can try to contact the researcher or the author to has his or her written permission to use the instrument. So secara etikanya memang kena, wajib. Tapi sebab saya last time saya tengok macam kebanyakan artikel yang daripada mana the author, the source of the instrument tu memang they mention somewhere on the articles that for the education purpose, okay, the researcher can use the instrument without asking the permission from the original researcher. Okay, so this is the example, the template for a questionnaire. Ini contoh. Okay, so this is from my own study lah. Okay, so we need to prepare the title. Okay, and then the information regarding the sponsor of the project if applicable. Okay, and then any related information, and then make sure you mention that the information the responses are voluntary, the participation are voluntary from the respondent, and then the information obtained based on the interview ni are confidential. Okay, so make sure we do not collect the personal information such as IC. Biasanya kita tak collect that one, the name of the respondent, biasanya that one tu kita tak collect to secure the anonymity of the student. Okay, and then you provide the detail, the summary of the instrument, berapa section yang ada. Okay, ini contoh the contact of the researcher. Ni sebab email dia, sebab kita nak bagi masa tu ada token, so that's why kena contact, kena bagi email. Okay, so this is according to the questionnaire, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 sections. Okay, but 6 variables. 6 variables. So this is section A ni, the DV, the dependent variable. So section B, job autonomy, IV1, locus of control, IV2, cognitive moral development, IV3, individual personality, IV4, and organizational culture. Okay, and then the last section, measure on the demographic information of the respondent. Okay, so for each variable ni, I have their own section, its own section. So these are the instruments contohnya. So saya kena providekan instruction. I need to provide the instruction for each section. Okay, so ni dia ada instrumen dia lah. Okay, instrumen dia. Kalau tak silap ni ada berapa, 8. Banyak juga. Corporate social responsibility design, ni the second section, job autonomy and so on. So dia ada sumber-sumber dia sendiri. Faham So this instrument, make sure sebenarnya when to develop instrument tu, sebab tu saya rasa saya perlu share slide lain for instrumentation ni. InsyaAllah next week lah I will share another lecture on this one, instrument sahaja. Okay, InsyaAllah next week. Slide tadi. Okay, so most of the quantitative researcher, the problem or issue that they face is mostly during data collection process, in which they have issue in low response rate from respondent. Kadang-kadang kita rasa quantitative ni senang lah, distribute je to questionnaire. No, it's not as easy as that. So sometimes we contact the respondent 2 or 3 times but no response. Okay, so what we need to do? So first we can offer them monetary incentive. Monetary incentive ataupun any incentive lah. Kadang-kadang dalam bentuk kupon, KFC kupon, Pizza Hut kupon, Touch and Go, up to you. Duit raya, up to you. It's not a bribery, it just kita kata sebagai token of appreciation for their contribution. It's not compulsory, tak wajib, tak bagi pun tak apa. Kalau if you want, if you don't want to give them in terms of monetary, then you can give in terms of dalam bentuk gift, bentuk hadiah, mark ke, up to you, depending on your, depend pada kemampuan masing-masing. Okay, and then you can try to follow up. First reminder, second follow up, third follow up. Buatlah follow up. Mana yang kita rasa boleh. Okay, but still we cannot force the respondent to involve in the study. If the respondent only refuse to involve during our first meeting, during first calling, then you please change your respondent. Okay, but saya last time saya pernah contact student to invite him to participate in the study. But the answer I received is, he said that I can sue you for, he want to sue me because I get the data, I get his phone number. Macam itulah. Itu ada possibility yang kita akan berdepan bila kita buat quantitative study ni. Qualitative different because before the interview session we already managed to get the agreement from the respondent. Kan, dia lebih senang sikit lah. Okay. Okay, so approaches to quantitative data analysis. So these are the software that are available to be used to run the quantitative data analysis. So first we have the Microsoft Excel, possible juga. Okay, we have IBM SPSS, we have Minitab, we have SAS Statistica, and then we have JASP, JASP. JASP is a free version. It's quite similar with IBM SPSS, in which for IBM SPSS ni, if you do not install the pirate version, then you have to buy the software lah. Then the software is quite costly, something if I'm not mistaken. But JASP, JASP ni is a comparable analysis software to IBM SPSS, and it is free. You can download online. JASP. Dia punya nama software. Ada lagi satu saya lupa. Ada lagi satu free juga. Okay. And then I already yes.
Dr. Nami, just want to share, UPM ada bagi license untuk IBM SPSS kepada student, boleh apply dekat bahagian IT dia.
You can apply for the free IBM SPSS license from UPM. Try to figure out lah. So kalau you all punya benefit, then pakailah. Kan? Bila lagi? Okay, thank you Al-Hewa. Ni lagi tak? Ni. Okay, ni saya sentuh sikit pasal statistik. Okay, because I already mentioned about the design and I said that it is closely connected to the type of statistic. So I touched a little bit on the type of statistical analysis available. Okay, in detail you will learn during your statistic class. So at least you all dah ada a superficial knowledge. Okay, so before we learn about the statistics, we should know about the attributes of our data. Attributes of our data. Okay, so our data ni basically has 4 main attributes, or we use the name as scale of measurement. Scale of measurement. Okay, we have 4 level of scale of measurement. The first one we have nominal, ordinal, interval, and ratio. Nominal, ordinal, interval, and ratio. Okay, so nominal. Nominal ni is a type of categorical data that involve comparison. Kan, categorical data, bukan salah, bukan comparison. Okay, nominal ni is consists of categorical data in which the numbering that we use, just to represent the group. Now, when you see the data, you try to link with statistical software, for example SPSS. Pernah tengok SPSS tak? Nah, okay, tak apa. Kalau siapa yang tak pernah tengok, saya tunjuk macam mana rupa SPSS. Tapi ambil masa sikit ni nak buka ni sebab berat. Betul nah? Okay, so this is the example of SPSS windows. So dia ada 3 main windows: data view, variable view, and syntax view. Syntax 3: data view, variable view. Data view, variable view, and syntax. Syntax tu dia special case. Okay, so to enter data in SPSS ni, we start with setting our variable in variable view. For example, first we start with ID. Okay, then we start with gender. So dia ada kat sini beberapa kolom lagi. Okay, belah kanan ni. After we insert this information, it will automatically appear in our data view at the top as the heading. Ini ID, gender. Itu Okay, so inilah rupa dia SPSS. So when we identifying the attributes of variable tadi, we should link to this software as well. Okay, sebab in in quantitative analysis ni, we are interested in numbers, numeric form, numbering form. Okay, so that's why any information that we obtain in the survey ni, we will transform into numbers. Okay, we will transform into numbers because this one we cannot capture numeric data. We cannot capture numeric data. Everything are in numbers. Example, this one, this one. Everything are in numbers. Semua dalam bentuk nombor. Okay. Okay. Pergi balik dekat slide tadi. Okay, so the first is a nominal scale of measurement. So again, nominal scale of measurement is a categorical data, which is we use number to appoint the group only. So for example, gender. Okay, we use 1 to specify the gender is male, 2 for female. Okay, numbering here, we use as code to insert in SPSS software. 1 male, 2 female, because SPSS software cannot capture if we insert male or female. Okay, 1 male, 2 female. Okay, so if we change the arrangement to 1 female, 2 male. Does it give any meaning? Ada beza tak? Ada beza tak? The first one with the second one. Is there any differences? Ada beza tak? Ni.
Different coding.
Different coding, just that's it, right? The code that we use, the number that we use to represent the group, but it does not give any meaning if we change the coding. Because 2 doesn't mean that male is better than a female, right? Numbering 2, we just use to code to represent the group. 1 represent the male, 2 to represent the female. Or we can use 1 to represent the female, 2 to represent the male. The number ni does not show the value that the specific group ni better than another group. Faham? Numbering just to represent the group. Faham Faham ke tak faham?
Betul. Sebab SPSS tu maksudnya semua kena pakai in numbering. So whatever yang kita nak masukkan dalam tu, contoh macam Dr. cakap, kita nak letak male atau female, it depends on us. Kita nak guna nombor berapa sekalipun, janji kita faham. Yang kita letak nombor 1 tu represent apa, nombor 2 represent apa.
Yes.
Apa-apa sajalah yang kita gunakan.
As long as numbers. You can use 7, 6, or you can even use 0 to present male, 1 to represent female. Okay, it just to represent the group. So the arrangement, if let's say we change the arrangement, it does not give any meaning. That one represent the nominal scale of measurement. Faham Itu baru untuk nominal. Nak masuk yang kedua. Faham Make sure betul-betul faham untuk nominal. Okay. Next one, ordinal. Ordinal is also a categorical data. Categorical data. But the number that we give start to give meaning. The number that we give start to give logical meaning. For example, 1 to represent low performance. Low Allah. Malahnya nak type kejap Saya type. 1 to represent low performance. 2 to represent average. To represent high performance. Okay. Okay, so now, if let's say I change 1 average, 2 low, 3 high. So now, first we look at the first example ni. 1 low performance, 2 average, 3 performance, 3 high performance. So the numbering that we give ni start to give meaning, ranking, we rank. Okay. Is it fair if I change the ranking into the second example? 1 average, 2 low, 3 high.
No, because it is not in sequence.
It is not in sequence. So maksudnya for ordinal ni, the numbers that we use start to give meaning. Start to give meaning. Okay. Dia start bagi maksud. Another example of ordinal is salary. Salary category. Salary category. Okay. For example, 1 between 1,000 to 2,000. Okay. 2, 2001 to 3,000. Okay. 3,001 until 4,000. So salary category. Okay. Ini another example. Next example, status, economic status. Itu pun boleh jadi. Poor, rich. So kita ada, dia start to give meaning. Numbering that we use, other than to represent the group, it start to give meaning. Faham Faham Tadi numbering we use to represent the group. If we change the arrangement, it does not give any meaning. Ordinal, okay, we use the number to represent the group first, sama macam in ordinal. But the arrangement ni are in logical order or in ranking form. Faham? Okay, in interval. Okay, contoh under ordinal ni, we do not know the specific differences between low performance or average. Kita tak tahu specific gap tu. But interval ni, during the interval ni, what you can imagine is you imagine the ruler. Imagine the ruler ni. you know exactly the differences, the interval, the differences. Okay, you start to get the data on the actual value. Okay, so this one ni nominal and ordinal ni considered to be the categorical data. Categorical. That's why this one ni contohnya performer. Gender 2. Okay, status ada berapa? Salary group how much? Okay. Interval and ratio ni referring to the continuous data. Data dalam bentuk continuous. 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4 and so on. It is no longer in category. For interval ni, you start to imagine your ruler. Okay. So the interval ni, example of interval is temperature. Temperature. Okay, temperature. Yang paling senang adalah temperature. Or another example of interval is any score related to cognitive or emotion. For example, if you score you score 60 for my class, score cognitive score interval. Okay, or okay, and then ratio ni quite similar with interval. The differences is just the value of 0. Beza dia adalah nilai 0. In which under the ratio scale of measurement, 0 ni means 0. Kosong maksud dia kosong. But in interval, 0 does not mean the absence of attribute. For example, if you score 0 in my DCE ERS5900, does it mean that you know nothing about research method? Betul tak? Kalau you score, bila saya buat test, okay, you score kosong dalam saya punya test tu. Adakah itu bermaksud you tak tahu apa-apa pasal research method? Tak semestinya. Probably the focus that the topic that you study last night not being covered in my test. Betul tak? Itu sahaja. Okay, and then if let's say you score 50 under the certain personality test, doesn't mean that you are tak pandai? Tak juga. Depend on what aspect that be measured in the personality test. Okay, itu untuk interval. But 0 ni, okay, 0 ni still give meaning. Maksudnya kalau dalam under the interval ni, 0 ni still give meaning. Okay, it's not necessarily 0. Okay, under ratio ni 0 means 0. Means that, for example of variable under the ratio is speed. Speed. If I said that I am moving at 0 km per hour, does my car move?
No.
Kosong tu maksud dia kosong. Kalau dalam ratio ni kosong tu maksud dia kosong. Kalau kosong dalam interval ni kosong tidak memberi maksud kosong. Sebab ada variable yang kosong, dia skor kosong tapi tak bermaksud yang dia tak pandai. It still give
Macam
temperature.
Macam temperature.
Yes.
Kalau kosong dia
You are freezing.
makin ke bawah.
You are freezing. Yes. Itu interval. Okay, itu contoh yang paling senang adalah temperature. Even at 0 degree Celsius, you are actually freezing. Bukannya absence of temperature. You are freezing. Okay. Kalau ratio ni 0 means 0. Example speed. Another example is salary. Tadi the salary category, but this one salary. If let's say I ask El Helwa, can I borrow 50 ringgit from you? But El Helwa first, none. Tak ada money, none. Then macam mana dia nak bagi pinjam kat saya? Right, contoh, El Helwa banyak duit. Amin. Okay. Itu contoh faham So make sure that you are able to differentiate. So nominal and ordinal numbering is used to represent the group. But in interval or ratio, we use the actual score. Actual score. For example, exam score, okay, salary. Itu contoh untuk interval and ratio, which is the continuous data. Okay, faham dulu dalam bentuk ni Okay, sebab apa kena faham? Because the specific scale of measurement ni will allow you or will lead you to specific data analysis. Okay, dia akan berkait dengan specific data analysis. Nanti saya akan explain balik mana yang berkait. Okay, next one. Parametric and non-parametric data. Apa pula? Parametric ni Paralimpik ke? Kan? Okay. parametric versus non-parametric data. In quantitative data, before we start analyzing our data, we need to fulfill certain criteria. Among the criteria are either our data are normal or not. Normal ni, if you may recall, it is the bell shape. Bell shape. Bell shape. Bentuk. Ni bell ni. Okay. In statistic class later, you will learn. If you consider data normal, the bell shape graph ni should be the range from plus minus 3 to plus 3, plus minus 3. Ataupun dia boleh jadi sometimes we use the cut-off point plus minus 2 untuk to determine the data normality. So if the data meet the normality requirement, the data falls under parametric data. Parametric data. Ataupun, okay, we will use the parametric analysis to run the analysis. If our data does not fulfill the normality criteria, then we need to consider the non-parametric statistic. Okay? So non-parametric data ni meaning that data does not meet the assumption of normality. Our data does not meet the bell shape ni. Ini maksud normality. Data kita tak ikut bell shape. Meanwhile, parametric data meet the assumption of normality. Okay, so in this case, to check the normality ni, okay, it is only applicable for continuous data only. To check for normality, it is only applicable for continuous data. Kalau continuous data tadi recall balik, we have 4 types of scale of measurement: nominal, ordinal, interval, and ratio, in which nominal and ordinal are categorical data. Okay, interval and ratio, continuous data. So meaning that to check for the parametric data ni, it is not applicable for nominal and ordinal data. Okay, ni automatically dia jatuh, it falls under the non-parametric data. Okay, interval and ratio data considered to be parametric because it consists of the actual value or actual score. Okay, so there is so that's why it allows us to check for the normality. Okay, okay, so next one, it is incorrect. This one, okay. So it is incorrect to apply parametric statistic to non-parametric data. Sebab nanti we will learn about the few types of parametric statistic. So to use parametric statistic, make sure your data meet the assumption of normality. So then you cannot use the parametric statistic to non-parametric data. But it is possible to apply non-parametric statistic to parametric data if those data do not conform to the curve of distribution being skewed or unevenly distributed. If you have the data that does not fulfill the requirement of normality, you cannot use the parametric test. You only can use the non-parametric statistic. But if you have the parametric data that fulfill the criteria of normality, you can use either the parametric statistic or non-parametric statistic. Dua-dua boleh kalau data kita normal. Kalau data tak normal, you have no choice. You only can use the non-parametric analysis. Okay, so statistic for parametric data tend to be more powerful because you can add more flavor, you can add more description on the finding compared to those non-parametric data. Okay, so such power is bought at the price of, for example, conformity to the normal curve of distribution and random sample. So data normality and random sampling are two important elements in quantitative study. Tadi, bila during our data collection, we need to make sure as much as possible we randomly assign or randomly pick our respondent. Okay? But during the data analysis, we need to check on the data normality before we are able to run or choose a specific analysis for our research objective. Okay? So this is the normal distribution. Normal distribution here referring to the symmetrical, the data are symmetrical about the midpoint of the horizontal axis. Dia symmetry. Dia macam kita tengok diri kita dalam cermin. Okay, and then how to check either our data are normal or not. Tadi first, it is based on the cut-off point of plus minus 3. But now you can also check the data normality based on the value of mean, median, and mode. Mean, median, and mode. If the mean is equal to median and median equal to mode, then you can also conclude that your data are normal. Okay, then you can check on the asymptote. Asymptote is referring to the tail ni, this tail. Okay, the asymptote ni or tail end of the perfect curve never quite touch or meet the horizontal axis. So dia punya asymptote ni will never touch the x-axis. Dia akan macam ni sampai infinity. Okay, dia punya normal distribution. So this is the normal curve. Okay, next one. Another strategy to check for data normality. We can check based on skewness. Ni. Yang tadi saya ajar tadi plus minus 3 tu adalah skewness. Okay, so to check on the normality, either then we check either the mean equals to median equals to mode. We can check our data normality according to skewness. Okay, so skewness is referring to which a distribution of score deviates from perfect symmetry. Okay, so the rule of thumb, okay, we use the conservative researcher use the plus minus 3 as guideline. So either when we locate our data on the x-axis, we make sure that our data falls within the range of plus minus 3. Or you can also use the cut-off point plus minus 2. Kalau stringent lagi, you can use plus minus 1. But as a general guideline, you can use plus minus 3. Kalau nak data cantik, plus minus 2 as a guideline. Okay? Okay, so in terms of skewness, there are 3 types of skewness. So we have negatively skewed, normal data, and positively skewed. Okay, how to differentiate between the negatively skewed and positively skewed? You look at the tail, the direction of the tail. If the tail ni directed toward negative side, the left side, so it is referring to the negatively skewed data. Data kita skewed sebelah kiri. Okay, kalau if the tail located directed on the right side, so the name is positively skewed. Tengok echo dia. Kalau echo belah kiri negatif, kalau echo belah kanan positif. But if it is, let's say, bell shape, then it is normal. Okay, and then tadi saya kata we also can refer to the value of mode, median, and mean. If the value of mean, median, and mode are equal, so it is referring to the normal data. But if the mean value lesser than median, and then the median value lesser than the mode, so this one referring to the negatively skewed data. If our median larger than mode and then our mean larger than median, this is referring to the positively skewed data. Okay, 2 kriteria. Sebenarnya banyak lagi, slowly, satu-satu. Okay. Berapa dah? 8. Okay, next one. Next criteria to determine data normality is based on kurtosis. Kurtosis ni referring to the peakness of a distribution. Tadi kita tengok skew, brightness, keluasan data. But now kurtosis, peak of the data. Okay, so there are 3 types of kurtosis: leptokurtic, mesokurtic, and platykurtic. Bukan platikus, platykurtic. Okay, ada 3 jenis. Okay, so what we want is the mesokurtic. Mesokurtic ni referring to the normal data. Okay, so leptokurtic ni dia punya cerung tu, peak tu tinggi. Platykurtic dia punya peak tu rendah, bawah sikit, negatif. Okay, so the rule of thumb for peakness ni we also use plus minus 3 as a general guideline. Kita sama je dengan dengan skewness. But later on during class Probahaman's class later on, if you attend his class, then probably he will use the plus minus 7. Lagi senang lah plus minus 7. Tapi untuk data cantik plus minus 3. Okay, so there are 3 types of courtesies. Other than we check the normality based on mean, mode and median, we can check our normality based on skewness. Okay, which is we use the guideline of plus minus 3. Okay, and then other than skewness and mean, mode and median, we can also use the courtesies or the thickness to check on data normality, in which the guideline, the cutoff point is also plus minus 3. Okay. Okay, next one. Okay, this one is the statistical approach to test on data normality. Okay, in which we use the Kolmogorov-Smirnov statistic or Shapiro-Wilk. Kolmogorov-Smirnov or Shapiro-Wilk statistic. How to check the normality based on this statistic? We refer to the significant value. We refer to the significant value. Okay, how should we decide? Okay, we compare against alpha. Ya, L1 nak tanya apa?
Saya ingat alpha by convention 0.05.
Betul. 0.5 or 0.1. Depend on your literature. Depending on your literature. Either you want to use 0.05 or 0.01. Okay, so we compare against alpha. Okay, so if, okay, since this normality ni is the assumption testing. Assumption. Okay, so the cut-off point that we use is this one. Dia terbalik daripada hypothesis testing. Okay, so the criteria is if the significant P, the significant value larger than or equals to alpha, our data considered to be normal. If the significant value or significant alpha, if the significant value lesser than alpha 0.05 or 0.01, it means that our data violate the assumption of normality or our data does not meet the assumption of normality. So in this case, for the first case, since the Kolmogorov-Smirnov value, the significance of Kolmogorov-Smirnov value is 0.000, larger or smaller than alpha 0.05?
Smaller.
Smaller. So therefore, it's violate the assumption of normality, meaning that our data are not normal. Tak normal. Same goes to the second statistic, which is Shapiro-Wilk. Since the significant value 0.000 lesser than alpha 0.05, okay, it's also violate the assumption of normality. Therefore, it does not meet the assumption of normality. Tapi ada yang larger, ni contoh. Tapi kebetulan contoh ni tak meet the assumption of normality. Faham Yeah? How to read the value, how to determine the data normality according to Kolmogorov-Smirnov and Shapiro-Wilk. Just now we learned that data normality can be based on the mean, mode and median values. Okay, the second one based on skewness, we use the cutoff point ±3. The third one we use the courtesies. We use the ±3 as the cutoff point. The fourth statistic we use the Kolmogorov-Smirnov and Shapiro-Wilk, in which the decision is based on the comparison of significant value against alpha. Okay? Okay. Okay, so saya rasa kita stop kat sini dulu. Pukul 8 dah, cukup dah tu. Okay, is there any question for today? Saya rasa semua slow sikit lah hari ni sebab kita dah masuk statistik. Sikit je saya masuk. At least you have the idea. Kena ajar hak ni sebab nanti dia akan link to your research objective. Okay? Any questions so far?
Doctor,
Yes.
Can I ask some question about the research proposal?
Yes.
Because that you shared the structure of the proposal in the PB the plus is
Okay.
about. So I want to ask about the chapter 2. So the chapter 2, the subtopic is something like the conceptualizing the dependent variable, serializing the dependent variable, and the determinants of the determinants of the dependent variable, and hypothesis development. So I want to ask, is there anything that we need to related to our independent variable?
Again, what is?
I mean, you shared the structure of the chapter 2.
Okay.
Is only in the PB is only considered about the DV dependent variable. So I mean, so we need to discuss the IV or not.
Okay, you should discuss your IV under the section of determinants of your DV. That section should discussing on your IV. Okay.
Okay.
So you in your literature review or in your dissertation writing, supposedly the discussion mainly based on your DV, your dependent variable. Focus in detail on your dependent variable. Okay. Your IVs can be anything, but you should include together, but the main focus still on your DV. So that's why first make sure that you focus or discuss on the conceptualization of your DV. But the conceptualization of your IV, you also need to discuss, but under the next section, which is the determinant, the section of determinants of factors related to dependent variable. You can change the subtopic accordingly actually. Itu saya punya guideline sahaja. It's just my guideline.
Okay. Can I also just add some the just like the introduction and the summary during the chapter 2 and the chapter 3?
Possible.
Oh, okay. I got it.
Possible. That one just the guideline. Guideline sahaja. Okay. Any other question? Again, I would like to remind everybody to make sure that you mark your attendance through Putra Blast. So we stop here for today. So thank you so much, guys. So inshallah we'll see next week. Next week. Ada kelas. Tak boleh sikit dah. Okay, see you again next week. So take care, guys. Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam.
Terima kasih Dr. Naomi.
Terima kasih.